Hello accounts people, time to have a look at variances. We're going to be using the spreadsheet later. I'll focus on the use of the formulas and as well to help the spreadsheets issues at level 2, level 3. Definitions first. This should only take a couple of minutes to run through. Variance is the difference between a budget figure, what we estimate in advance, and the actual figure after we've received the bill or calculated what we've spent. They're an essential part of controlling expenditure. Very important, because if we spend £1 more than we shouldn't have, that's £1 off our profits. If we get sales revenue of £1 less than we should have, that's not such a problem because it's not £1 off our profits, but it might still be 20p or 30p off our profit. We also use them to identify fraud or theft. The fact that figures aren't quite as they should be, there's something not right, might identify that somewhere somebody is up to something. Adverse or favourable is the way we will describe our variances. Adverse means bad, favourable means good. This is to solve the mathematical issues, that we'll also got another way of doing that later. As an adverse sales budget is less sales, so actual less than budget. Budget minus actual would be a positive figure. An adverse expenditure budget means we spent more than our budget, so budget minus actual would be a negative figure. That one at least makes sense. Solving the problem by use adverse or favourable. Our budgets can then be described as significant or not significant. We look at the numbers, and some budgets just aren't worth investigating. The ones that are not significant, they're either too low a percentage or we can't really control them. And then we've also got to look at who's responsible: sales, production or purchasing. Just a little bit of common sense there. No point blaming the admin manager for the fact that we haven't sold enough or that we spent too much on materials. At further AAT levels, variances get really developed. It's important at level 3 and level 4. So topics that identify what we can control, because for instance we control materials wastage, that's part of the job as a production manager, but we can't control our rates bill, that's set by councils and local government, and with interference with the national government. And what we definitely can't control is international exchange rates. That will affect our materials prices, for instance. Also at higher levels, starting at level 3, we'll flex budgets. That means that we adjust them for levels in activity. If we make more units or spend more hours working somewhere, we'll spend more on direct labour or materials. No point blaming the production manager for overspending on materials. We may have spent more, but we may have also been more efficient. That would be hidden in the figures. Flexing it solves that problem. And also a bit more investigation into the causes of variances. So we've got the reasonings here actually, just as a little bit of extra really. Our first sales figure we're going to look at on the spreadsheet might be caused by selling too little volume. We haven't sold enough units or at chargeable hours, or we haven't got the budgeted price, so we've had to give things away cheap, or we may have got a better price for our items or hours. So here's our table then. Budgets and actuals already set out, two sets of figures. We've got our sales figures, materials and overheads. On the bottom one we'll also have a look at profits. So the first thing to do is to calculate our variance. So variance is budget minus actual. Budget came before actual, so it's always that way around. Now that one's got a minus symbol in front of it. That's not really useful in terms of our calculations. It will mess up our percentage calculations. So there's a little formula that we can use, or function. ABS means absolute, and actually the little drop returns the absolute value of a number without its sign. So if we then put the calculation round in brackets, it gets rid of the minus symbol, because we're then going to decide whether it's adverse or favourable afterwards. So our second one, that's going to be £5,000, and we might as well fill in the rest and have a look. So these are all just the straightforward mathematics, budget minus actual. I've used a quick shortcut there, the safe error-free shortcut of Control and D for filling in a formula in rather than dragging with the mouse. So that one was 100, that's 500, that's okay, that's an extra 1458, that's an extra £1,500, that's nothing because it's exactly budget and actual the same, and that one's £1,000 less than we budgeted for. So in terms of adverse or favourable, we've sold more than we budgeted for. That's good. But we've also spent less on materials in the budget. That's also good. This one though, our labour bill came in a little bit high, so that's bad. And this particular overhead came in higher than budgeted. This one is just a nil. It's not adverse, it's not favourable. Although most people will be quite happy and consider a nil an achievement. Not spending more than budget. This one, it's £1,000 less. Not a big variance, but that's good anyway. Still goes down as favourable. So just favourable or adverse is useful, but not the whole story, which is why we start to use the percentages. This one we've got variance percentage as a header. So two options here. The one we'll use first, the calculation's the same, is our E3, that's our variance, divided by our budget figure. So a variance as a percentage is as a percentage of the budget. If you just type that, it gives it 0.5. That's a decimal, it's half. 100 is 200 is a half. So two options here. One I could have times 100. That's okay, because that now gives us 50%. Or without the 100 sign, I could have click the percentage icon. That turns it into 50%. We'll go back though, we'll have it as a 50% number because we've got percentage in the heading. So next one down, then 5,000 as percentage of 50,000, well that should be 10. And then the other ones, we'll see the difference as we do the normal Control D trick. We've got one of 2.9%, so that is 1458 divided by 50,000 times 100 is 2.9. That's 10%, 1,500. 15,000. That's 0 of course. And this one, although it was £1,000, it was only 0.2%, a fifth of a percent. So now we need to work out whether they're significant. Well, in the exam you just click a box. So is 50 greater than 5%? We said 5% is significant. Well, that's pretty easy to work out. Or we could, if we're doing a lot of them on a spreadsheet, use a formula, a function. So this is a very common one in accounts, the if function. So if we click on the FX symbol, it makes life a lot easier, and the if symbol's coming up because I've used it recently. Click OK. The logical test, well what I want to know is the item in G3, that's my 50 in this case, is it greater than 5? Had it we stuck at 50% formatted as a percentage, I've had to type in 5%. If it is, I want my computer to tell me that it's significant. And you can see it's actually building up the formula on here. If it's not, I want it to tell me it's not significant. So I could actually have used formulas or all sorts of other items here. If we just type in a word, it knows it's a word, and then you can see the formula in full function. Some people prefer to learn this way of doing things and type it in. And we are expecting that one to be significant. 50% is quite important. In fact, our second one's also significant. Although they're both favourable, they're quite significant. This one though isn't significant, it's less than 5%, and if we just carry on down, you can see using Control D again, 10% is significant, these ones are not significant. We would investigate the ones that are significant, so have a look at our overheads bill. So who's responsible? So okay, well that's down to sales because it's just simply our sales manager, our sales directors. And that one's a nice easy one. Materials though is part production, but also it might be the purchasing people that haven't done their job, and we'll go into the reasons in a minute. Labour, we'll assume it's direct labour. Production, not purchasing but HR, maybe they've got the rates wrong or gone to the wrong agency. Overheads, it's far more awkward, far more difficult to pin the blame on anybody, general manager or just the directors, so we can't really particularly blame. It's not necessarily even the job of the purchasing department to sort out overheads. So the reasons then, why might our sales budget be wrong or variance be significant in this case? Well, it might be down to our volume. We've sold more units, or it might be down to our price. We've either got more for our units than, in this case, than we budgeted, or we've sold more, or maybe we've sold an extra unit here. Our reasons then for our materials are a bit more complicated. We haven't flexed our budget, so it might be the cost, the price of our items. It might be wastage. It might be we've wasted a lot. But it also, because we haven't flexed it, might be down to a volume. We've been so busy making a lot more units. Or in this case, we haven't been very busy. We've made a lot less units than budgeted, so we've spent a lot less on our materials. But it also might be the opposite of wasted as well, because it's a favourable. We might have been very efficient with our materials. So our label on this one's coming a little bit higher. We have equivalent, but it's not price, it would be called rate. So the rate that we pay people at, and it's not wastage, it's efficiency. Our labour force are efficient. In this case it's adverse, so they're maybe not very efficient, or not as hoped. But also, again, we might actually have spent that £1,458 because we've been really busy. Our overheads, though, it's not to do with rates or efficiency, it's just literally down to the cost. But we could also blame the accountants. Maybe they got the budget wrong in the first place. To get that one, an overhead wrong by 10% is maybe an issue. Maybe we just didn't have the right figures. That one obviously spot on. There's always some overheads we know spot on, and that one, well, okay, to 0.2% or 50% would probably be just we rounded up or something, so we couldn't do a lot about that anyway. And that's its favourable anyway, so we're not too worried about that. So let's have a look at the ones down the bottom. I've got an extra line in here though, so just something slightly different. Our profits. Well, profits, our budgeted profit would have been our sales figure, C11, minus all our expenses. We'll do it the long way. Could have done a little sum off and put all the other expenses in brackets. So our sales minus all our costs, we had a budgeted profit of 47,477. Did we hit that on this case? Control R to fill a formula to the right as opposed to Control D, which we used here to bring them down. And now we've actually made a loss of 374,000. So somebody's not very happy. We'd better investigate. We'd better look at the variances. So again, equals abs budget minus the actual. This one is going to be 399. We've sold 490,000. Well, bearing in mind our profit figure, that's not the whole difference, because the whole difference is over 400,000. So let's have a look then. It'll apply to all the figures. So we've sold £400,000 difference. Materials is 11,000 difference. Our overheads all seem to have bigger amounts, but that doesn't tell us until we work out whether adverse or favourable. So this one we've sold less than budget, that's bad. Materials is also bad because we've spent more than budget. This one is favourable, but it's only £31, so that's not really solved the problem. And this overhead is £10,180 less than budget. Oh, that's a favourable. But this one is also favourable by £20,000. much more likely to be important. But this one has come in at 41,000 bad to counteract the other two. So actually the three overhead variances, £10,000 between them. So our profit figure, we just say adverse. We should say really bad, because it's an awful way off our original figure. In fact, we've gone from profit to loss, so that's a very serious. As a percentage, again, we'll stick to the we'll put the percentages in here then. So we'll format these as percentages afterwards, which means all I've got to do is E11, that's the variance, divided by the budget, and that one is formatted as a percentage. Must have left it there before, and so are these. So these are already formatted as a percentage, which means I didn't need to times 100. I just highlighted them and clicked the percentage button. So we've got a significant sales. Well, yes, we better do this then, hadn't we? So back to our if statements. If, and now it is G11 is greater than 5%, not significant. So that one we're expecting that one, and that one not to be significant. What it doesn't tell us is the fact that that is the biggest one of the lot, 888% significant. So who's responsible? Well, pretty much the same list, so we don't need to worry about that. The only thing we've got different is our profits. So if it's a limited company, you have directors who are responsible for the business. And we can work out the reasons. Well, what is our biggest reason for £420,000 adverse overall profit? Well, that's a bit of analysis. Yes, everything almost, because everything apart from our labour. So who's responsible for reasons? We haven't got very good sales. You haven't got control over our materials, and also our overheads are a little bit bad as well. So the combination of all the variances together, and that tells us the whole story, so we know what to try and do and who to blame.